The stars burned quietly in the black sea of space as Captain Daniel Hayes guided his small cargo ship through the wreckage of a destroyed fleet. Broken metal drifted like ghosts, the remains of a battle he had tried to avoid. He wasn't a soldier. He was just a human pilot hauling supplies between forgotten colonies. But fate had other plans that day. His ship's scanner beeped suddenly. A life signal. Weak, faint, almost gone. Daniel frowned and adjusted the controls. Through the shattered remains of a cruiser, a tiny escape pod floated, turning slowly. It was badly damaged, half melted from weapons fire. Most people would have ignored it. But Daniel wasn't most people. "Hang in there, whoever you are," he whispered, steering closer. The pod door hissed as he pried it open. Cold vapor spilled out, and inside lay a figure wrapped in glowing silver armor. For a moment, Daniel thought it was some kind of machine. But then the figure moved, soft breathing, fragile and real. He pulled off the cracked helmet, and what he saw made him freeze. She wasn't human. Her skin shimmered like moonlight, smooth and almost transparent. Her hair floated in strands of pale blue light, and her eyes, bright, gentle, and alien, flickered open. She looked at him, confused but proud, as if her very presence demanded respect. "Who are you?" Daniel asked quietly. The woman blinked, her lips trembling before forming words in fluent galactic common. "I am Princess Erin of the Lithari Empire," she said weakly. "And you are human." Daniel nodded slowly. "Yeah, last I checked." She tried to sit up but winced in pain. Smoke still poured from the escape pod. The ship shook again, a reminder that they were still in a dangerous sector. Then, with sudden fire in her voice, she said, "You're a human, aren't you? Then take me right here and now out of this death trap before my enemies find me." Her words came out proud, commanding, like a royal order, but her eyes betrayed her fear. She wasn't demanding out of arrogance. Why, she was begging, wrapped in pride. Daniel couldn't help but grin. "Yes, Your Highness." Right away, he carried her aboard his ship, placing her gently on the co-pilot's seat. The Silver Finch was small and old, but it had heart, just like its captain. As the engines roared to life, Daniel could see distant flashes in the dark, search beacons from enemy patrols. He didn't know who was chasing her, or why, but he knew one thing clearly. If he left her, she'd die, and he wasn't going to let that happen. The thrusters burned bright as the Finch darted away, diving between pieces of drifting debris. The radar screamed warnings, but Daniel's hands were steady. He'd flown through worse storms than this. The princess watched him silently, her fingers gripping the edge of the seat. She didn't understand humans. Her people thought them reckless, unrefined, too emotional. But in that moment, she saw something different. She saw courage that didn't ask for reward. She saw a man risking his life for a stranger. When the last of the enemy signals faded from the radar, Daniel finally exhaled. He turned to her and said with a small smile, "You can relax now, Princess. You're safe." Erin looked around the ship. The worn metal walls, the flickering lights, the smell of old oil and coffee. It was messy, human, alive. She had grown up in palaces of crystal and gold, surrounded by servants who bowed in silence. Yet somehow this simple ship felt warmer. "You call this safe?" she asked with a soft laugh. Daniel chuckled. "Safer than where I found you." Her lips curved slightly, the first real smile he saw from her. It wasn't royal, polished, or distant. It was tired but real. For the first time since the battle, she whispered, "Thank you." "Human," Daniel nodded. "Just Daniel." And as the Silver Finch disappeared into the endless dark, two very different souls, one born of light, one of earth, began a journey that would change both their worlds forever. The Silver Finch drifted quietly through the dark, stars shining like cold candles outside the window. Inside, the air smelled faintly of oil and burnt metal. The engines hummed softly, alive but tired. Daniel sat at the controls, his eyes heavy from exhaustion. Beside him, Princess Erin slept in the co-pilot's seat, her head resting against the bulkhead. Even in sleep, there was something graceful about her, like she didn't belong to this rough human ship. He watched her for a moment and smiled faintly. An alien princess, he thought. What in the galaxy have I gotten myself into? A few hours later, the sound of soft movement pulled him from his thoughts. Erin stirred, opening her eyes slowly. Her silver skin glowed faintly in the dim light. She looked confused at first, then remembered where she was. "Still alive?" Daniel asked, smiling. She looked at him and replied softly, "For now." She tried to stand but nearly fell, catching the wall for balance. Daniel quickly moved to help her, but she raised her hand sharply. I can walk, human, he laughed lightly. Stubborn, aren't you? Aaron gave a small smirk. Royal blood does not need pity. But her voice softened after a moment. Still, thank you. She wandered around the small ship, her eyes taking in every detail. The cluttered tools, the hanging wires, the half-broken coffee machine. To her, it was chaos. To Daniel, it was home. What is this smell? She asked, wrinkling her nose. Daniel turned in his chair. That, princess, is the smell of hard works and burnt coffee. She tilted her head, pretending to be serious. It smells like feet. Daniel burst into laughter. It was the first real laugh he'd had in weeks, and for a second, the heavy air in the ship felt lighter. When he stopped laughing, he saw her smiling too. Genuinely smiling. Not like a royal addressing a servant, but like a person who had forgotten for a moment that she was supposed to be perfect. As hours passed, she began asking questions about humans. Why do you explore space when it is so dangerous? Why do you fight wars for planets you don't even live on? Why do you help strangers? Daniel thought for a while before answering. Because that's what we do. We keep moving forward. We help when we can. Even when the universe tries to kill us. She was quiet for a moment, staring at the stars outside. My people do not understand your kind. They say humans are reckless, that you burn everything you touch. Daniel smiled sadly. Sometimes we do, but sometimes we build things that last. There was silence for a while, a peaceful kind of silence. The hum of the ship, the soft blinking lights, the stars slowly drifting by. But then Erin's expression darkened. Her voice became quiet. My empire. It's gone, isn't it? Daniel didn't answer right away. He looked at her, saw the pain in her glowing eyes, and finally said, I don't know, but as long as you're alive, there's hope. She turned to him slowly, surprised by the warmth in his voice. You really believe that? He nodded. I have to. It's what keeps people like me flying. For a long time, she didn't speak. Then she whispered, Maybe humans are not as foolish as I was told. Daniel smiled, leaning back in his chair. Careful, princess. Keep saying nice things about us, and I might start thinking you like me. Her lips curved into a small, teasing grin. Do not flatter yourself, human. You smell terrible. They both laughed again, quietly, softly. Two souls who should have been enemies, but instead found comfort in each other's company. Outside, the stars continued their silent dance. Inside, something new was beginning to grow. Something fragile and dangerous. Erin looked at him one last time before closing her eyes. Thank you for saving me. Daniel looked out at the stars and whispered, Anytime, princess. And somewhere deep inside that little ship, the universe felt a little less lonely. The days passed slowly inside the Silver Finch. The hum of the engines had become a kind of heartbeat, steady and soft. But Daniel knew it wouldn't last. They were flying through dangerous space, and he had seen the signs, faint scanner blips, strange radio signals, and coded transmissions that didn't belong there. Someone was hunting them. Princess Erin could feel it too. Though she tried to hide it, Daniel saw the worry in her glowing eyes whenever the radar beeped. She sat beside him, pretending to study the navigation charts, but her hands trembled slightly. Who do you think it is? Daniel asked quietly. Her voice was calm, but her tone carried sadness. The Korth Dominion. They hate my people. To them, capturing me means power and victory. Daniel frowned. And what happens if they do capture you? Erin looked down. They'll make an example of me. My empire will fall completely. There was silence between them for a long moment. The only sound was the hum of the engines and the soft ticking of the navigation system. Then Daniel said in a steady voice, Then we won't let them find you. Erin turned her head and looked at him. There was something in his eyes, not pride, not fear, but determination. The kind of strength that didn't come from power, but from heart. He began adjusting the ship's route, plotting a path through the nearby asteroid fields. We'll lose them in there, he said. She leaned forward, studying the plan. That's suicide. The field is unstable. Daniel smiled faintly. Maybe, but it's also our best chance. Within hours, the chase began. The radar screamed with warnings. Bright red dots appeared, enemy ships fast and armed. The Finch shook as the first plasma bolts flew past the hull, lighting up the dark with blue fire. Erin gripped the edge of her seat. "They've locked on! Hold tight!" Daniel shouted, pushing the throttle forward. The small ship dove into the asteroid field, weaving between massive chunks of spinning rock. Explosions flashed all around them, lighting the cockpit in bursts of color. The enemy cruisers followed, but Daniel flew like a man born for chaos. He twisted and turned, using every bit of cover he could find. The ship scraped against a rock once. A horrible screech filled the cabin, but they kept moving. Erin's voice shook. "You can't outfly them forever." "Don't need forever," he said through gritted teeth. "Just a few minutes." He pulled the ship sharply downward, diving into a thick cloud of dust and magnetic debris. The ship rattled violently. Sparks flew from the console. The warning lights turned red. "Daniel," Erin cried. "I know," he shouted, punching at the control panel. "Hang on!" For a moment, everything was chaos. Alarms, shaking metal, burning circuits, and then suddenly silence. The ship drifted into a glowing mist of blue and violet gas. The scanners went dead. The enemy signals vanished. They were inside a nebula, a storm of ionized particles that fried all electronics, including the ones used for tracking. Daniel leaned back in his seat, breathing hard. Sweat rolled down his face. "We lost them," he said finally. Erin exhaled shakily, her shoulders trembling. "You're insane, human." Daniel gave a tired grin. "Maybe, but it worked." For the first time since the chase began, she laughed, a soft, beautiful sound that filled the cabin. It was a strange moment, laughter blooming in the middle of danger. Then, as the ship floated silently in the glowing cloud, her expression softened. "You saved me again," she said quietly. Daniel looked at her, his voice gentle. "I told you I wouldn't let you die." The nebula's light reflected in her eyes, making them shine like stars. "You risked your life for me, human. Why?" He thought for a moment and said softly, "Because sometimes doing the right thing is all a man has left." Erin stared at him, this strange, brave, reckless human, and for the first time in her life, she didn't feel like a princess. She just felt alive. Outside, lightning danced through the nebula, painting the void in light. Inside, two hearts beat quietly in the storm, both realizing that their journey had only just begun. The nebula glowed like a dream around them, soft waves of blue and violet light drifting outside the ship's cracked windows. The Silver Finch floated silently, its engines dead, its systems flickering weakly. There was no sound now except the faint hum of emergency power and the soft rhythm of two tired hearts. They had escaped the Korth cruisers, but at a heavy price. The thrusters were burnt out, and the navigation system was half fried. They were safe, yes, but stranded. Daniel sat in the pilot's chair, staring at the blinking warning lights. His fingers tapped uselessly on the console. He had done everything he could, but there was no fixing a ship with fried circuits and no spare parts. Behind him, Princess Erin sat quietly, her arms wrapped around her knees. The bright glow from the nebula made her silver skin shimmer faintly. She looked fragile now. Nothing like the proud royal he had first met. "How bad is it?" she asked softly. Daniel sighed. "Bad. We have power for maybe 2 days. Air for 3 if we're careful." Erin didn't speak for a while. Her glowing eyes stared out the window, watching the drifting colors outside. "So we're trapped." He gave a small, tired smile. "For now. I'll find a way out." She looked at him then, really looked, and for a moment she saw not a human smuggler, not a reckless fool, but a man who refused to give up. That strength, that quiet stubbornness, it moved her more than she expected. "Humans," she whispered, shaking her head gently. "You always think you can fight the universe itself." Daniel chuckled softly. "Sometimes we do." Silence filled the cabin again, heavy and thick. The ship felt smaller with every passing hour. Daniel sat back, closing his eyes for a moment. His body ached from exhaustion, but sleep wouldn't come, not with death waiting so close. Erin broke the silence. "Daniel?" He turned his head toward her. Her voice was quiet now, almost fragile. "Why did you save me? You didn't even know who I was. You could have kept flying, left me to die." He thought for a moment, then said softly, "Because I couldn't. I've seen too many good people die already. If I can stop that from happening even once, then maybe I can sleep at night." She stared at him, her lips parting slightly. His answer wasn't heroic or poetic, it was honest, real. Erin's throat tightened. She had grown up surrounded by advisors, guards, and servants, people who bowed when she entered a room but never looked her in the eye. No one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever risked everything for her without expecting something in return. She moved closer to him, sitting beside the pilot's chair. For a while, neither of them spoke. They just sat there, watching the soft lights of the nebula ripple across the glass. Then Erin whispered, "When I was a child, I used to sneak out of the palace to see the stars. I thought they looked peaceful, but now they feel so cold." Daniel looked at her and said gently, "They're only cold when you're alone." Her eyes met his, and in that silent gaze, something shifted. The walls between them, the difference of species, rank, and worlds, faded for a heartbeat. Erin reached out slowly, her hand trembling, and placed it over his. "You don't even realize it, human," she said softly. "But you make the darkness feel a little less empty." Daniel didn't know what to say. He just held her hand back warm and steady. "You're not alone, princess. Not while I'm here." Outside, the nebula pulsed like a living thing, its light bathing them in soft colors. Inside, two strangers, once from different worlds, found comfort in each other's silence. As hours passed, Erin rested her head lightly against his shoulder. The hum of the dying ship filled the space between them like a lullaby. Daniel closed his eyes for the first time in days, whispering quietly, "We'll make it out. Erin, I promise." And even though she knew the odds were against them, the princess smiled softly. For the first time since the fall of her world, she believed him. In the heart of a dying ship surrounded by endless space, a human's promise was enough to keep her heart beating. The days inside the nebula felt endless. The Silver Finch floated silently through the glowing fog, its lights dim, its engines cold. The air had grown thin, the temperature low. Each breath felt heavier than the last. Daniel had stopped checking the power levels. He already knew the truth. They didn't have much time left. He sat quietly at the controls, staring at the faint flicker of the emergency lights. Beside him, Princess Erin was huddled under a worn blanket he had given her. Her silver skin no longer glowed as brightly. Even her soft blue eyes looked duller now. But her spirit, that stubborn pride, was still there. Daniel looked at her and smiled faintly. "You're tougher than you look, Princess." Erin tilted her head. "You say that like it's a surprise," he laughed softly. "It is. I've seen soldiers fall apart faster than you." She smiled, a small, tired curve of her lips. "Maybe that's because I've had to pretend to be strong my entire life." Daniel frowned slightly. "Pretend?" Her gaze drifted to the window, where blue lightning flickered through the nebula's fog. "When you're born into royalty, everyone expects you to be perfect. To never be scared, never cry, never doubt. But I'm scared now, Daniel. I've never been this scared before." He didn't know what to say. Her words hit him harder than he expected. He had always seen her as untouchable, beautiful, proud, powerful. But now she sounded like someone simply trying to survive. Daniel moved closer. "You're allowed to be scared. It means you still want to live." She turned to him, her voice trembling. "Do you? After everything you've seen? Do you still want to live?" He took a long breath, looking down at his scarred hands. "I used to think life didn't mean much anymore. I lost people, good ones. After that, I just kept flying, kept moving, trying to forget. But then I found you." Erin blinked softly, her glowing eyes studying his face. "And what changed?" Daniel smiled weakly. "You reminded me that life's still worth fighting for. That there's still something good out there, someone good." She was silent for a moment, her chest rising and falling slowly. The air between them felt heavier now, filled with emotion neither of them could hide. "Daniel," she said quietly, "my people used to call humans reckless and dangerous. But you're different. You risked your life for me. Someone you barely knew." "Why?" He looked at her, really looked. "Because I couldn't lose you. Not after everything. You're not just some alien princess anymore. You're the reason I'm still fighting." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The words hung in the air like a fragile truth neither dared to touch. Erin's lips parted slightly, her voice barely a whisper. "Daniel," her hand reached out, trembling slightly, and touched his. It was cold, delicate, but warm enough to make his chest ache. I don't know what humans call this feeling, she said softly, but I know I don't want to lose it. Daniel smiled sadly. We call it love. Erin froze for a moment. Her eyes softened and she whispered the word as if testing it. Love. Silence filled the cabin again, but this time it was G.I. Nenel. The nebula outside glowed softly, painting their faces in light. After a long moment, she rested her head against his shoulder. If I don't make it out, she said quietly, promise me you'll remember me. Not as a princess, but as someone who finally learned what it means to care. Daniel's throat tightened.
He wanted to tell her they would survive, that everything would be fine.
But he couldn't lie to her, not now. He placed his hand over hers and whispered, I'll do more than remember. I'll carry you with me wherever I go. She smiled faintly, her eyes closing. Then maybe I can rest. Just for a little while. Daniel held her close as the ship drifted through the silent storm. He didn't care about the broken engines, the fading power, or the cold creeping in. All he cared about was the warmth of the alien woman beside him, the one who had somehow made the endless dark feel like home. Outside, the nebula shimmered softly, like the universe itself was watching their fragile bond. Two souls, one human, one alien, finding light in the middle of despair. And though neither said it aloud, both of them knew they would never be the same again. The nebula pulsed with soft light as the silver finch floated silently, its systems barely holding together. Daniel had kept the ship steady for hours, guiding it through the glowing clouds, but his heart thumped with worry. Every second felt like a lifetime. Every faint blip on the scanners made him tense. Then, finally, a signal appeared, faint but unmistakable. A Lithari distress beacon glowing golden on the radar. Daniel's fingers shook slightly as he adjusted the controls. Erin, we might have a chance, he said softly. Her eyes opened slowly. The tiredness of days drifting in the nebula showed in the dark rings beneath her glowing eyes. But when she saw the signal, something like hope sparked in her gaze. Do you really think they'll come for me? She asked quietly. Daniel nodded. If anyone can survive a human pilot, they'll find us. Minutes felt like hours as they waited. The faint hum of emergency power was the only sound. Then suddenly the silence broke. Distant engines, strong and steady, cutting through the nebula's fog. Bright lights appeared on the radar, golden beacons approaching fast. The Lithari fleet had arrived. Erin's hand found Daniel's, gripping it tightly. They're here, she whispered. Daniel smiled faintly, though his heart was still racing. See? I told you we'd make it. The boarding ships docked and soldiers swarmed aboard, their movements precise and disciplined. They bowed deeply before the princess, their voices full of relief and awe. Erin straightened, her posture regal once more, but her gaze stayed locked on Daniel. You did this, she said softly. You saved me. Daniel shrugged, trying to hide his fatigue. I just kept the ship alive long enough? She shook her head. No, it's more than that. You risked yourself, your life, for me, a human, caring enough to fight a war alone in a tiny ship just to save someone from another world. Her voice faltered slightly. You're extraordinary. Daniel felt heat rise to his cheeks. Extraordinary? Maybe reckless? Definitely. Erin let out a small laugh, soft and musical, but there was sadness hidden inside. I suppose the universe has its strange ways. A human saves a princess while her own people scramble to reach her. It's ironic. Daniel looked at her, noticing the way her glowing hair reflected the golden lights, the tired lines on her face, the softness in her eyes. You're alive. That's what matters. Nothing else. Her lips curved in a small, playful smile. And you, Daniel, you've changed everything. My entire view of humans. Because of you. You've reminded me that there's kindness and bravery in unexpected places. He smiled faintly. And you've reminded me that sometimes hope is worth chasing. The soldiers gave Erin space, bowing respectfully but keeping watch. She turned to Daniel and said quietly, almost shyly, I don't know what the council will say when I return, but I do know. I owe you my life. Not just my life, my heart in a way. Daniel felt the weight of her words. He opened his mouth to reply, but no words seemed enough. Finally, he whispered, You don't owe me anything. I did what anyone would do. Not anyone, she said softly. Not a human. The fleet captain approached, signaling that it was time for her to leave. Erin's face fell slightly, but she lifted her chin, regal once more. She stepped closer to Daniel, lowering her voice. "Remember me," she said quietly, her glowing eyes locking on his. "Not as a princess, not as royalty, but as someone who trusted you with everything. And maybe one day, we will meet again." Daniel swallowed hard. "I'll remember, always." As the shuttle pulled away, Erin glanced back one last time. Her playful smile returned, tinged with sadness. "Goodbye, human." Daniel watched her vanish into the stars, feeling an ache in his chest he had never known. The ship was quiet again, but the memory of her gaze, her hand in his, and the hope she carried would remain with him forever. In that moment, he understood something he hadn't before. Humans may be small in the vast universe, but courage, loyalty, and heart could shine brighter than any star. And somewhere in the endless dark, two hearts, one human, one alien, were forever connected. Weeks had passed since Princess Erin had been taken back by her fleet. Daniel returned to his life among the stars, hauling cargo, running missions, keeping the Silver Finch barely afloat. But nothing felt the same. Every quiet moment, every dark stretch of space reminded him of her laugh, her glowing eyes, her voice softly calling him a human with more courage than sense. He had tried to bury it, pretending life went on as usual. Yet when he gazed at distant stars, he could see her face in the lights, feel the warmth of her hand in his. He would admit it to no one, not even himself, but part of him had been waiting for a sign that their story wasn't over. One evening, while scanning the outer rim of a quiet sector, the ship's console beeped. A small coded transmission flickered across the screen, golden light against the dark interface. Daniel leaned forward, his pulse quickening. He recognized the code immediately. It was Lithari, royal, unmistakable. His hands trembled slightly as he activated the receiver. A voice, soft but filled with authority and warmth, spoke through the speakers. "Take me right here and now, human. I'm coming aboard." Daniel's jaw went slack. For a moment he couldn't breathe. Then he threw open the cockpit hatch as a golden shuttle glided silently alongside the Silver Finch. The docking clamps locked in, and the hatch hissed open. There she was, Erin, not dressed in ceremonial robes, not as a princess, but as a traveler. Her hair glowed softly in the shuttle lights, her silver skin luminous, her eyes fixed on him. Her smile, playful, mischievous, and full of life, was just as he remembered it. Daniel felt tears sting his eyes. "Erin," he whispered. She laughed softly. "I told them I was on a diplomatic mission," she said, stepping aboard. They didn't need to know where. He stepped forward, heart hammering in his chest. "Where are you going?" "Wherever you go," she said simply, her voice steady. No hesitation, no fear, just certainty. Daniel felt a warmth he hadn't known he was missing. He reached for her hand, and this time it was him who held on, refusing to let go. "Then I guess we have a lot of traveling to do," he said with a tired, happy grin. Erin tilted her head, her smile teasing. "Do you always talk like a human hero?" "Only when a princess is involved," he replied. The stars outside stretched endlessly, but inside, the Silver Finch felt alive again. The engines hummed, carrying two souls who were no longer bound by duty or rank, only by trust, respect, and the fragile, beautiful thing humans called love. As they navigated through the nebula's glowing mist, Erin leaned on his shoulder. "You know," she said softly, "I once thought humans were reckless, primitive, selfish, but you've changed my mind. You've shown me courage, kindness, something I never expected from your kind." Daniel smiled, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. "And you've shown me that even the smallest, strangest human ship can hold the biggest heart." For a long moment they sat in silence, listening to the gentle hum of the ship and the soft pulse of distant stars. The universe was vast, dangerous, and often cruel. But in that little ship, two beings from different worlds had found something stronger than fear or despair. They had found each other. Erin looked up at him, her eyes shining brighter than the nebula outside. "I don't care what anyone else says," she whispered. "I choose this. I choose you." Daniel felt a lump rise in his throat. "And I choose you too, Erin. Always." She laughed softly, resting her head against his chest. "Then I suppose this is just the beginning of our adventure, isn't it?" He held her close, looking out at the endless stars ahead. "Yes, and nothing can stop us now." The silver finch soared into the infinite dark, carrying two hearts, one human and one Lethari, bound together by courage, trust, and the unshakable belief that even in the vast universe, hope and love could survive. For the first time, Daniel felt truly at home, not in a ship, not in a planet, but with her. And Princess Erin, once a captive of war and fear, now smiled freely, knowing she had found something stronger than a throne or empire. She had found a human who believed in her, and in themselves, in a universe that could be beautiful if they dared to chase it together. And so, among the stars they disappeared, two souls, different worlds, one heart beating together.